Today's masterclass video is going to be about how to use a water stone. So we're going to talk about why you need to use a water stone. We're going to show how to use a water stone, what to do before and after you use a water stone, and also how to maintain the water stone so that it lasts as long as possible and works as well as possible. This video is meant to be a one-stop shop, everything you need to know about using a water stone and keeping it nice. So first of all, what do you need a water stone for? So certain types of Japanese chef's knives have an edge that comes straight from the flat of the blade right down to the edge. They don't have a secondary bevel like a lot of pocket knives do. What this does is it gives you a very fine, precise edge for slicing, but it's also hard to maintain that edge. And the best way to keep it super clean is with a water stone. Also, a lot of Scandi grind knives, Scandinavian grind kind of does the same thing. It comes straight from the flat of the blade all the way down to the edge in one bevel. There's no secondary bevel. So those knives also do well on a water stone. You can use that for those as well. So first of all, what do you do before you use the water stone? That's the types of knives you would use it on. Now let's talk about what do you do before you use the water stone. So before you use the water stone, number one, you have to soak it. You put it in the water so the water saturates the whole stone. That way you don't scrape bits and chunks off of the stone as you do it, because there's going to be water through the whole thing. If you use it dry or not fully soaked, you'll get a layer of wet stone on the outside that's softer, and then the stone on the inside will be harder. So you get uneven wearing on the stone. It just doesn't work as well. So you need to soak it for 10-15 minutes before you start. Mine is already soaking in here. I will show you what that looks like when we get it out. And second, you need to align the edge of your knife. Okay, let me zoom in on the other camera and show you what this looks like. On this knife, you can see there are some spots like right here where that edge has been pushed out of alignment to one side. If I show you the other side, you can see it's kind of the reverse of that. So it's not a chunk out of the edge. It's the fact that the edge has been pushed over to one side like this. And what that does is it creates a misaligned spot in the edge. And if you scrape that down the water stone, you would cut a groove in your stone and ruin it. So you don't want that to happen. So what you want to do before you use the water stone is realign your edge. To realign your edge, you would typically use a butcher's steel. I don't have one with me today, so I'm just going to use the back, the spine of another knife. Any hardened piece of steel will do this. And what you're going to do is lay it right along the edge of the knife. So see how it's flat along that whole grind? And then you're going to slide it with pressure down the edge of the knife. And you can hear, as I'm doing that, it's kind of clicking over those places. And the more I push it, the smoother that will get. So you're going to do that up and down both sides of the knife. And this is realigning the edge. So I'm not actually removing any metal as I'm doing this. I'm just going over and over it again until I push those little pieces back into alignment with the rest of the edge. I'm going to do this a few times and then I'll show you the results. And you can go up and down quickly like this. You don't have to just go in one direction. Again, I'm not honing, I'm not removing metal from this edge. I'm just realigning the edge with where it's supposed to be. Now the edge has been realigned. You can still see it a little bit, but when I run this down the edge, now you're going to hear it sounds different. So you can still kind of hear it, but it's pretty smooth now. Running down that edge, it doesn't give you that grainy bumpiness anymore. If I tilt the edge over so you can see the actual edge, you can see those deflections are a whole lot smaller than they were a minute ago. So now that we've minimized those deflections, now we're ready to use the water stone. I'm going to do this with my Japanese chef's knife and with the Mora knife you just saw me working with. So you'll get to see how to do both types of those knives. You are going to need some water in your pan. This is important for cleaning the stone as you go along. I'm using this in a paint tray. It's got a clean liner in it so that I can just keep dipping and moving as I go along. You'll notice there are two different grits here. I have a 1000 grit and I have a 6000 grit. You're going to start with the lower number grit, the coarser grit. And then what you're going to do is align the edge with the blade. I'm going to zoom way in here so you can see. When using a water stone, how you align that edge is crucial. So what I'm doing here is I'm watching that gap. So see how there's a gap between the edge and the stone there? I'm tilting this blade until that gap disappears. So I'm starting here, I'm tilting here, and what that does is it aligns the flat of that edge with the blade. And then what I'm doing is I'm slowly gliding that all the way down the edge of the stone. And I'm watching as I come around the curve of the blade that edge remains completely flat to the stone the whole way through. You can kind of feel with your finger too as you push it. So see how I'm using my finger as a guide, and I'm keeping that blade in the same spot on my finger right here, so that it doesn't rise up or down on my finger, so that I know it's keeping the exact same angle on the stone the entire time. You're going to count the number of repetitions you do on one side of the blade, and then you're going to do the same thing on the other side of the blade. Also, you're going to watch the stone. So as I do this, you're going to see some black powder build up on the stone. That black powder is metal coming off of the blade onto the stone, and that will build up in your stone and ruin it eventually. You can start to see this now. See there how there's some dark streaking on the stone there? So those little dark areas, you can really see it in my fingerprint there. That is metal shavings. So what I need to do now is rinse that stone in this water that I have down there. Wipe it a little bit. And what that will do is rinse off all the metal shavings so they don't get packed down into my stone. And then I can continue sharpening without ruining my water stone. Now I have done a few reverses back and forth, and you can see I'm starting to get some clay carving off of that stone and dripping on the pan up here. I've done a few rinses of the stone, and what I'm getting now is a nice clean edge on that knife. If I run my fingernail up the edge this way, I'm not getting any catching, I'm not getting a wire edge. Same thing on this side, so I've got my edge down to a clean edge now. You can see there's no more rolling or glinting from the edge misalignments before. So now it's feeling pretty sharp. So now I've got it down to that 1000 grit edge. Now I'm going to flip the stone and we're going to do the 6000 grit. Same procedure. You should be able to see, yeah, so on this side, because the color of the stone is lighter, you can see the buildup of that powder from the steel, the metal shavings, a lot quicker. And if you're doing it right, you're going to get big long lines of it down the stone like this, because the whole edge is going to be flat and dragging along the stone and not just little bits like up there. So that probably means I didn't get my angle perfect on the tip. That one was better. Gave me a wider, less distinct line. So I'm going to keep flipping back and forth like that. And this will give me a really good edge. If I really want to make this super, super sharp, what I would do is I would do a leather strop after this, which I'll probably cover leather strops in another video. But that's what you would do at the end of this. Since I'm going 6000 grit, on the stone, if I'm using a strop after this, you would be doing 8 or 10,000 grit on that stone. Okay, so now I'm starting to feel that's getting really sharp. So I'm going to rinse that, wipe off my stone, get my blackened particles off of there, and then continue. One advanced tip for people who are very confident in their finger work is if you can tilt the edge down to the blade like this, you can actually place your fingers right along the edge here where that meets the blade in several places, and you can make sure that you can feel the edge stay flat along that blade with your fingers. Again, this is advanced work. You can easily slice a little bit of skin off this way, but it allows you to keep a very, very precise angle on that grind. I'll show it the other way. If you've got particularly thick calluses on your fingers, you might not be able to do this. Or if you're not super, super confident in your coordination, you wouldn't want to do this. But it does allow you to get a really, really fine, precise angle on that grind and make sure it stays exactly the same. So now, so now we're getting very sharp. The chef knife is a bit more challenging because it's longer. So as I'm taking this knife along the edge of the stone, I'm having to pull it a lot more this direction, kind of edge to tip, heel of the blade to the tip of the blade, in order to get it all the way along that edge. And this is where you might have to turn your stone. Because this is so long, I was actually catching the edge of the pan here. So I'm having to turn my pan so that I can take it through the pan this way. And that way I'm not hitting the edges of the pan. You can use a stone holder for this. It's kind of messy if you don't have it in a tray. So a low tray with a stone holder is a little bit better. I'm doing it this way to save on mess. If you're doing it right, what you'll get is nice clean marks on the knife that go all the way from the edge to the back edge of the bevel here. You can see how those strokes are getting all the way across, and I'm getting it completely flat, entirely up there. A botched one will look like this. Where see how this is shiny, and then I've got dull stuff there. So I didn't get those. I kind of did it on purpose, but I didn't get completely flat on that side like I did on this side. So that's what a good one will look like. That's what not quite right looks like. Another tip for knowing if you're doing this right is that when you're sliding this blade down the edge, what it should feel like is you should almost feel that edge kind of sort of catching occasionally on that stone. So what I'm feeling is smooth sliding and then kind of a little, not a jump, but like an almost a little tick, 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 tick as the blade glides along the edge. And that way I know I'm getting the very, very sharp edge of that blade dragging along the stone. I don't want it to feel like that 100% of the time because that means I've got the blade too far this way and I'm grinding off my edge. But you want to feel that slight ticking sensation a few times as you go up and down the blade, because that means you're keeping your edge alignment really, really tight. All right, now we are at a very fine shaving sharp edge. Yeah, that is super duper sharp. So done there. Again, you can do it with a strop. We'll do a strop in another video, but that is the basics of how you sharpen with a water stone. With your carbon steel knives, wipe them off and you will need to oil them immediately, especially these Moras, these high carbon steel ones. They will rust within minutes. So get them good and dry, oil them down, make sure you get the oil right down along the base of the blade. I will be talking about what oils are best to use for different types of knives. And yes, there are different ones for different knives in another video. Now we're going to talk about what you do with the water stone once your knives are sharp. Again, I'm going to oil this. When you oil a kitchen knife with a wood handle, make sure you get some wood on the, or some oil on the handle as well. That oil is also very, very good for the handle. It will keep it from splitting, keep it from cracking, Your wood handles will last a lot longer if you put some of your knife oil just down there on the handle as well. Get them good and dry, put oil on them. That's necessary. Also, with these Japanese chef's knives, especially the Sanmai chef's knives, where the high carbon steel sticks out the middle, make sure you oil the spine of the blade because that will rust. Make sure you oil down here around the throat of the blade because that will rust in there. And any rust on the blade has the potential to cause corrosion around your edge and cause issues that way. So that is a well-oiled blade. Now let's talk about what do you do with your water stone after you're done using it. So you don't always want to just put it away. So you want to make sure your stone stays flat. If you use your water stone enough, what you'll end up with is a sag in the middle. So you'll use the middle more than you use the edges. And therefore, when you are done using your stone, it'll start creating unevenness on your edges. So what you want to do to fix that is use a flattening stone. So this is a flattening stone. This has been soaking in the water with my other stone. And I'm going to show you how to use it real quick. So what you want to do is put some lines on your stone. And this is how you're going to tell if it gets flat again, because those lines will go away when it's flat. So all I'm going to do is take my wet flattening stone, put it on my regular water stone, and then I'm going to rub it up and down. Again, a stone holder makes this easier, but you don't necessarily need one. And what you're going to see is, see how the lines on the edges and up here have started to wear away first, and those lines have stayed. So what that means is that my stone was a little bit divoted out in the middle. I'm going to keep rinsing that off again so I don't pack it up. And then I'm going to keep going back and forth on that stone until all my lines go away. Yeah, so you can see that was a high spot. This is a low spot because my lines are still there. So that stone was not particularly flat. I've used this a few times, so that's not really a surprise. And you can use a fair amount of pressure with this. Still got one low spot right there. Now, I've seen stones that were a lot worse than this. I don't use this particular stone that often, so this one wasn't particularly uneven. Let's rinse that and see where my lines are. Okay, so I've only got one little low spot right there. All right, I believe, yeah, all my lines are gone. So that is a flattened water stone. Again, same thing, rinse it off in clean water. I'm going to use the water that's in the pot or in the sink because that's still got a lot of clay in it. But that is what you do when you're done using your water stone so that you know that it's flat, that it is ready to use again, and that it's all even and ready to go. When you are finished using your water stone, make sure you rinse it completely and wipe it off in clean water. There should be no metal shavings or dark spots left on the stone. Do the same thing with your flattening stone. And then you leave these out to air dry on towel and then flip them over occasionally so that they dry evenly. Don't just stick them back in a drawer in Tupperware to seal because they will mold. And that is how you maintain your stones. So that should be everything you need to know about using and maintaining a water stone. If you have questions or if there's something I forgot, leave a comment down below. If this and different types of sharpening procedures and sharpening equipment is something you want to see more of on this membership, leave that in the comment down below. And hopefully you will now have very, very sharp Scandi knives and chef knives.